Hello and welcome to Dollars and Cents, the podcast where we break down the complex world of personal finance into simple, actionable ideas. I'm your host, Alexa.
And I'm Sam. Today, we're diving deep into a book that has fundamentally changed how a lot of people, including us, think about money. It's not about stock picks. It's not about finding the next Bitcoin. It's about the stories we tell ourselves.
That's right. We're talking about Morgan Housel's masterpiece, The Psychology of Money. This book argues that doing well with money isn't necessarily about what you know. It's about how you behave. And behavior is hard to teach, even to really smart people.
A genius who can't control their emotions can be a financial disaster. Meanwhile, someone with average intelligence but a lot of discipline can become incredibly wealthy. And to prove that point, the book starts with one of the most powerful contrasts I've ever read.
Let's get into it. Segment 1, the greatest show on earth, behavior versus intelligence. So Sam, set the stage for our listeners. How does Housel open this conversation?
He tells two stories. The first is about a guy we'll call the tech millionaire. This guy was brilliant. He was an early employee at a Silicon Valley startup that hit it big. He was in his 20s, and after his company went public, he was worth, let's say, over $10 million. Life-changing, right? A sum of money that, if managed with even a little bit of care, could set him and his family up for life.
The dream. So what happened?
He thought his success was entirely due to his own genius. He believed he had the Midas touch. So he took that money and he started making incredibly risky, concentrated bets. He put huge chunks of his net worth into other startup stocks, into volatile options, into things he thought were sure things. He was playing the game to get even richer quickly.
And I'm guessing the story doesn't end with him buying a private island.
Not unless that island is a studio apartment he's renting. Within a few years, he had lost everything. Every single dollar. His net worth went from 8 figures to basically zero. His genius got him the initial money, but his behavior, his overconfidence, his ego lost it all.
A tragic but sadly common story. Now, contrast that with the second story. This one blows my mind every time.
It's the story of Ronald James Reed. Now, Ronald wasn't a tech genius. He wasn't a hedge fund manager. He was a gas station attendant. He pumped gas and did repairs for 25 years. And after that, he worked as a janitor at a JCPenney. He was a blue-collar worker his entire life. He wore cheap jeans, flannel shirts, and he would chop his own firewood to save money.
A frugal life. So how does this connect to money?
When Ronald Reed passed away at the age of 92 in 2014, his family and the executors of his will discovered something astonishing. This humble gas station attendant and janitor had quietly amassed a fortune of over $8 million.
$8 million. How on earth did he win the lottery and tell no one?
Not at all. There was no lottery win, no inheritance. The local newspaper in Vermont where he lived investigated. They found his secret was almost embarrassingly simple: extreme frugality and relentless lifelong investing in blue chip stocks. He would buy shares of companies he knew and understood, like blue chip dividend-paying stocks, and he would just hold them for decades.
Let's break that down because it's so important. He lived well below his means. The money he saved from his modest jobs he invested, not in flashy, exciting stuff, in boring, predictable companies. And then he just let it sit. He let compound interest do its thing, quietly, in the background for over half a century.
Exactly. He wasn't a genius stock picker. He was a behavioral champion. He had immense patience and discipline. The tech millionaire had intelligence, but no discipline. Ronald Reed had discipline, and it made him wealthy beyond anyone's imagination. The tech millionaire got wealthy. Ronald Reed stayed wealthy. And that's the first huge lesson of the book. Financial success is not a hard science. It's a soft skill where how you behave is more important than what you know.
It's a story that should give everyone hope. You don't need a finance degree from an Ivy League school. You need patience and discipline, which, okay, is easier said than done, but it's a different kind of challenge, right? It's an internal challenge, not an external one.
Precisely. And that internal challenge, that psychology, is what the rest of the book unpacks.
Segment 3, Never Enough, the psychology of greed. So we've established that behavior is key, but what is the single most destructive behavioral trait when it comes to money? Morgan Housel argues it's the inability to say enough.
This chapter, Never Enough, is arguably the most important in the book. It's about the black hole of greed and how it's almost always tied to one thing: social comparison. Keeping up with the Joneses, but on steroids.
We live in a world where we're constantly bombarded with curated highlights of everyone else's success. Instagram mansions, LinkedIn humble brags about fundraising rounds, Twitter threads about insane returns. It's easy to feel like you're falling behind, even when you're objectively doing great.
And Housel uses a devastating example to illustrate this: the story of Rajat Gupta. Now, Gupta was at the absolute pinnacle of success. He was the managing director of McKinsey & Company, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. He was on the board of Goldman Sachs and Procter & Gamble. He was a philanthropist. By any rational measure, he had made it. His net worth was over $100 million.
$100 million. I think most of us listening would say, okay, that's enough. I've won the game. I can now focus on enjoying my life, my family, my legacy. But that's not what happened.
Not even close. In 2011, Rajat Gupta was convicted of insider trading. He was passing confidential information from Goldman Sachs board meetings to his friend, hedge fund manager Raj Rajaratnam, who then traded on it.
So a man worth over $100 million risked his entire reputation, his freedom, and his legacy for what? To make maybe a few more million for his already billionaire friend? It makes zero sense on paper.
It only makes sense through the lens of psychology. He wasn't in the world of normal people anymore. He was in the world of billionaires. Compared to his peer, Rajaratnam, his $100 million might have felt small. The goalposts had shifted. His enough point had moved, and it dragged him right off a cliff.
This is so critical. Housel's lessons here are stark. Lesson 1. The hardest financial skill is getting off the treadmill. It's realizing that the goal isn't to have more than the next guy. The goal is to have enough to be secure and happy on your own terms. The hardest thing is to stop playing the game of more, especially when you're winning.
And that leads to lesson 2. Social comparison is a killer. The solution Housel offers is brilliant in its simplicity. Quote, "The only way to win the game of social comparison is to refuse to play. You have to define what enough is for you. Not for your neighbor, not for your college roommate, not for the guy on YouTube with the Lamborghini, for you. And once you hit that number, your strategy has to change from offense to defense, from accumulation to preservation and enjoyment."
And this ties into lesson 3. Some things are more valuable than money. Rajat Gupta had $100 million, but he lost his reputation, his freedom, and his standing in the community. He went to prison. No amount of money is worth that. Housel lists the priceless assets we should protect: reputation, independence, family, friends, happiness. These are things you can't buy back once they're gone.
This chapter is a warning. It's a plea to do the hard internal work of figuring out your enough. Because if you don't define it, the world will define it for you, and it will always be just out of reach.
Segment 4, Confounding Compounding, the 8th wonder. So we're behaving well, we've defined enough. How do we actually get there? Ronald Reed did it through compounding. But Sam, I think compounding is a concept people think they understand, but they truly don't intuit its power.
It's the most powerful force in the universe and also the most boring. It's not intuitive because our brains are wired for linear thinking. If I ask you to imagine 30 years of growth, you imagine a straight, sloping line. Compounding is a curve that starts flat and then explodes vertically. It's not intuitive at all.
Housel uses a fantastic analogy. He doesn't talk about money first, he talks about ice ages.
Yes, for the longest time, scientists were baffled by the ice ages. What massive cataclysmic event could suddenly cover continents in ice? It turns out it wasn't a sudden event at all. The ice ages were caused by a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in the Earth's orbit. This tiny shift meant that for years, just a little bit more snow fell each winter than melted each summer. And that tiny annual surplus compounded over thousands of years, built up into miles-thick sheets of ice.
That's exactly what compound interest is. It's not about a giant win. It's about a small, consistent surplus applied over a long, long time. Ronald Read didn't have one amazing investment. He had decades of putting a little bit of money away over and over again into decent investments and then letting the snowball roll down the hill for 70 years.
And the classic example, the patron saint of compounding, is Warren Buffett.
Let's talk about Buffett. Most people know him as this incredibly successful investor, but Housel points out that his success isn't necessarily because he's a better stock picker than everyone else, though he's brilliant. It's because he's been compounding for an extraordinarily long time.
Here's a stat that will break your brain. Warren Buffett's net worth is over $100 billion. But guess how much of that $100 billion was accumulated after his 50th birthday?
I don't know, half? $50 billion?
Try over 99%. And how much after his 65th birthday?
No way. Maybe 80%?
Over 95%. Let that sink in. Warren Buffett is the richest investor of all time, not because he made crazy returns in his 20s and 30s, but because he's been a disciplined compounder since he was literally a child. He started investing at age 10. He's now 93. That's over 80 years of uninterrupted compounding.
The takeaway isn't you have to start at age 10. The takeaway is that time is the most important ingredient. Getting started early is fantastic, but even if you're starting later, the strategy is the same. Let the process work. Don't interrupt the compounding. Don't pull your money out to chase the next hot thing. Be like Ronald Read. Be like Buffett. Be patient. The last few years of growth are worth more than all the previous years combined. You just have to get there.
It's the ultimate argument for a boring, disciplined, long-term strategy. The excitement of trying to get rich quick is a distraction from the real, slow, powerful engine of getting rich surely.
Segment 4. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy. A tale of two tragedies.
All right, so we've built this wealth through good behavior and compounding. The game's over, right? Not quite. Housel makes a crucial distinction that's a theme throughout the book. Getting money and keeping money are two different skills.
They require different mindsets. Getting money often requires risk-taking, optimism, and aggression. Keeping money requires humility, fear, and paranoia. It requires recognizing that a lot of success is attributable to luck, and that the world can take it away from you in an instant if you're not careful.
And to illustrate this, Housel goes back in history to tell the stories of two investors from the early 20th century, Jesse Livermore and Abraham Jermansky. Sam, these stories are like something out of a Greek tragedy.
They really are. Let's start with Jesse Livermore. In the early 1900s, he was perhaps the most famous trader in the world. He was known as the Boy Plunger. He made and lost several fortunes shorting the market. He was a genius at market timing. His most famous feat was correctly predicting the 1929 crash and making over $100 million, which in today's money is well over $1 billion. He was at the absolute top of the world.
So what happened?
He couldn't turn off the risk-taking mindset. The same aggression that made him his fortune undid him. He kept trading, and over the next several years, he lost it all, completely. In 1940, he walked into a hotel bar in New York City, wrote out an 8-page suicide note, and took his own life. The note reportedly included the line, "My life has been a failure."
That is devastating. A man who had everything but couldn't transition from the mindset of getting wealth to the mindset of keeping it.
Now, the other story is Abraham Germansky. He was also a brilliant investor and speculator. He also made a fortune, reportedly over $100 million as well, by leveraging up to buy stocks during the great bull market of the 1920s.
So another high-risk, high-reward guy.
Exactly. And when the 1929 crash happened, he was completely wiped out. Margin calls wiped him out. He lost everything. The shock was so profound that he suffered a complete mental breakdown. He was committed to a mental asylum, and he spent the rest of his life there, dying in obscurity.
Two incredibly talented men, two tragic ends. So what's the lesson here? Is it that investing is dangerous and we shouldn't do it?
Not at all. The lesson is about survival. The purpose of investing isn't to make the highest returns. The purpose is to not die, to survive the inevitable downturns, the unexpected crises, the personal mistakes. Both Livermore and Germansky had a 100% failure rate at surviving a downturn. Their strategies were brilliant until they weren't, and then they were catastrophic.
The lesson for preserving wealth is humility. You have to leave room for error. You have to acknowledge that you might be wrong, that the world is unpredictable. This means not being over-leveraged. It means having cash on the side. It means having a diversified portfolio so that one bad bet doesn't sink you. Be like Ronald Reid. Be like Buffett. Be patient. The last few years of growth are worth more than all the previous years combined. You just have to get there.
It's the ultimate argument for a boring, disciplined, long-term strategy. The excitement of trying to get rich quick is a distraction from the real, slow, powerful engine of getting rich surely. Segment 5, tying it all together and conclusion.
All right, Alexa, so if we had to boil this entire book down to a few actionable takeaways for our listeners, what would they be? What is the real psychology of money?
I think it comes down to 3 core ideas. First, manage your behavior, not your money. Spend less time looking for the perfect stock and more time understanding your own psychology. Why are you tempted to sell when the market drops? Why do you feel the need to keep up with your peers? Master your internal triggers and the external money management becomes much, much easier. Second, define your enough. This is the most important personal finance question you will ever answer. Sit down and really think about it. What number would give you the security and freedom you crave? Once you hit that number or on a clear path to it, shift your focus. Stop trying to maximize your wealth and start trying to optimize your life. Protect what you have. Third, respect the power of time and compounding. Stop chasing quick wins. The most powerful investment you can make is to start early and be consistent. Even small amounts invested regularly in a simple low-cost index fund can grow into staggering sums over 30 or 40 years. Don't interrupt this process. Be patient. Let the math work for you.
Perfectly said. Ultimately, The Psychology of Money is a book about making peace with money. It's about understanding that financial success is not a way to act superior to others. It's a tool to provide for your family, to gain control over your time, to reduce your stress, and to be generous. The stories in this book of Ronald Reid, Rajat Gupta, Jesse Livermore aren't just anecdotes. They are cautionary tales and North Stars.
They teach us that the ultimate dividend that money pays is not goods and services, but the ability to control your time and your choices, to wake up in the morning and say, what do I want to do today? That's the real wealth, and achieving that has less to do with your IQ and everything to do with your EQ, your emotional intelligence around money.
So learn from the mistakes of others. You won't live long enough to make them all yourself. This book is a shortcut to that wisdom.
That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money.
If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. It really helps others find the show.
And until next time, remember, do well with your money. But more importantly, do good with your sense.
Thanks for listening.
Don't forget to subscribe my channel. Bye.
Bye-bye.